The following is a presentation of the Belly Up Sports Media Network.
Jon Jones announced his UFC retirement on social media. He said, "Today I'm officially announcing my retirement from UFC. The decision comes after a lot of reflection, and I want to take a moment to express my deepest gratitude for the journey I've experienced over the years." First thoughts of when you saw this online, Admire?
First thoughts, I was just like, man, he could have done this shit a long time ago. Like, I want the backstory now. I want to know why it took so long. Why didn't he retire before? Was it UFC wouldn't pay him enough to fight Tom? You know, what's the backstory? Like, why, dude? And you know, everybody's got their own theories on it. Is he ducking Tom? You know, does he really did he want to fuck with Tom and like damage Tom's legacy? I don't know, man. Like, there's so many ways you could think about this. Jon's a fighter. He's never really backed away from anybody except for Chael Sonnen, you know. So I don't really see Jon ducking him, but Jon wants to keep that legacy intact as well. So I don't know, man. There's just so many ways you could think about it. But my first reaction is like, I kind of expected it, just as long as he's taken off, you know. But did he announce it because of the other things going on? You know, did you see the thing that happened right along with it?
Yeah, didn't he get another legal trouble with, was it hit and run or something?
Another hit and run. And, you know, some people said that something about possibly intoxicated.
But I see it because I was busy this past weekend, so I didn't get to deep dive into it. But it looks like somebody in the legal world was defending him and saying he possibly might have been set up because it allegedly happened back in February. And why is it just now getting out if it's something as serious as that?
Yeah, I don't know. I haven't seen all the evidence, but it was just really weird that this, you know, it all happened within the same timeline. So I don't know. I guess we'll just have to wait for more on that to come out. But, you know, the fact remains, why did it take so long for him to just come out and retire? When's the last time Jon fought? Against Stipe, how many months ago?
November. So it's 9 months ago or so. Not 8, 9 months.
Yeah, and he wasn't injured to my knowledge. You know, he should have been fighting or had something set up. You know, I don't know, man. I would have liked to see him at least have one more fight where he announced and said, "Hey, this is going to be my last fight." Go out and, you know, do the retirement promo package. Everybody knows this is going to be his last fight. Hey, MSG, this is my retirement fight. You know, set it up and do it proper, not just come out of left field and retire via social media. You know, I would have liked to see him retire better.
So if you put on your tinfoil hat, just like I said initially, what do you think is the reason why you're retired, Admire?
I think he wants to keep his record and legacy intact because if you told me, you know, if we were doing a show and it was, you know, Tom Aspinall against Jon Jones, I'd pick Tom Aspinall. I think Tom would beat Jon Jones. And then what happens to Jon Jones' legacy at that point? Nothing really. I mean, he's still one of the best fighters ever, but what can he do after that? He's, you know, then what if he goes on to start losing? You know, a lot of those champions, as they get older, once they get that first loss, then the losses sometimes start snowballing. You don't want to become that, so you can either retire and stay on top or risk that first loss that becomes a second loss, that becomes a third loss. So I don't know, man. That's just kind of the way I see it. I don't think he wants to take that first loss to Tom, so just get out while you're on top.
Yeah, but even if he lost, I don't think he's the type of dude that is going to keep chasing the dragon, so to speak. It definitely set up a rematch where they would make probably even more money. And I think if he lost twice to Tom, I think he just probably hang it up. But I don't know. I mean,
but
what do you go ahead?
But we've seen what kind of trouble he's been in before, you know, legally, substances, all that. Maybe he knows himself well enough that he would spiral if he did take a loss. Maybe that's possible. Maybe he's thinking, hey, there's a chance that this guy might beat me and it might send me down a really dark path. So I can't risk losing. I better get out now, because that's possible. Like me, I've been in trouble before with drinking. Right now, I'm not supervised or anything. I could drink, but I don't, because I'll probably get in trouble. So he could be thinking along the lines of me. Hey, I better not risk it, man.
I don't know. It's definitely a possibility. What were your whole thoughts on this retirement, Steve?
It could be multiple reasons. Me, Jon Jones, I've always been a Jon Jones fan. And yeah, I think he has a complex. He used to do things, he used to say himself to, like, he would party very hard the weeks before and the days coming up, just so he can have an excuse if he lost. Saying that complex just going in, I mean, he can find different ways to trick his mind. I don't think it's avoiding. I think Jones is just too crazy, meeting somebody else's style in the octagon just to prove a point. I think it's possibly relationship with Dana and UFC in the past, and just to knowing, like, hey, they're always going to say somebody out there, is going to take you. And when you go out on top, I mean, especially lately, anybody that's been undefeated, which is very few, Mayweather, they're going to say, what if? And they say he avoided a lot of fights, Mayweather. So saying Jon Jones, this is the only thing, if this was a narrative, if he was avoiding, I mean, he done way more than the regular combat fighter, because he went through death row, his early age, mid career, and we can also say some of latter. I think maybe he's just seeing, like, hey, it's my last fight. Is it worth it? And if it doesn't meet his standards, he's okay with it, because he knows he's going out on top anyway. But as far as, like, we've seen people have a ceremony after their retirement, is what I can say the fans are cheated. Maybe could be cheating itself, but maybe that's up to him. But definitely could have went out with a different a way, so we can commend his career.
And you both make good points. And like you were saying earlier, Admire, of course, there's probably something in the back of his mind where he's like, he may not want to mess up his legacy if he loses. But I think his ego's so big that at the end of the day, he would love to beat Tom Aspinall just to prove a lot of the trolls in the comment section wrong. So I think at the end of the day, it comes down to money. I think UFC didn't want to pay him. And so, they're both putting their dicks on the table, so to speak. Jon Jones said, all right, if y'all want to pay me, then I'm leaving. I'm retiring. And we'll see how fast y'all come back running, because I'm asking a little bit to see if this actually sticks. But just looking at it on surface level, I don't think they paid him what he wanted. So he's like, fuck it.
Yeah, and that could be his part of his plan too. Like, he could say he's retired. He could wait and see if Tom fights somebody else, see how the heavyweight division shakes out. How many fighters have we seen retire and come back? He could come back, and they could offer him a lot of money to come back. How many rappers have we seen say, this is my last album, to come back and drop a big one? And it sells more. So Jon Jones could be doing the same thing. I'm retired. And then his first fight back sells 10 times the pay-per-views that it would have now. So, I mean, this could just be a big, a big hustle by the company and Jon Jones to sell a big fight. So you never know. Could just be strategic.
Yeah. So, like you said, we've seen rappers do it. Like Jay-Z, he had a retirement album, came back.
Jay-Z, Too Short. Like, they've all had, this is my last album. And then they come out with 10 albums after that.
Yeah. But going back to both of y'all's points, him not having like a retirement announcement and all the pomp and circumstance behind the last fight. Is that necessary though? You seen they did it for like Anthony Smith for some reason, but like going to a basketball reference, Kobe had his retirement tour, but just as accomplished player on the other side of things, Tim Duncan, he just quietly retired. So is a retirement match even necessary for like Jon Jones? Admire?
No, I mean, as great of a fighter as he is, I mean, his fighting spoke for him. He doesn't have to. I mean, his legacy speaks for himself. Like Steve said, like he ran through the best of the best at the time in his prime when he was young, when people were in their primes. I mean, he beat everybody, from, Machida, Vitor Belfort when he was just roided out of his mind. Like Jon Jones walked through everybody. So his record speaks for itself. He doesn't need the retirement party, but it would be cool because he was the face of the UFC forever. I mean, if you think about it, he had probably the biggest sponsorships out of anybody in the UFC's ever seen. He had Reebok before he got into trouble. That was one of the biggest ones that anybody's seen. He's had, just multiple brands on him. Like he was just huge, and he could have been even bigger without the legal trouble. So, I mean, he could have had a packaged retirement, but it's not necessary.
Yeah, I agree with that. So on first thought, and because if we let it, kind of simmer and we can start to see how it unfolds, we probably have better predictions. But just on like first thought, do you think this retirement will stick? And I'll start over you, Steve.
Bringing to the point you guys kind of brought up earlier, with Dana and as far as contract, contract goes outside of the, table in the room, bargaining. And I can see based off of Dana's behavior, they say he's kidding because of his older age, but, I don't think so. Usually we would be saying, Dana saying, oh, he's scared. He called me last night. He said he doesn't want it. He's shaking. He would be making up things for these fighters to be coercing them to even sign the contract. But you can see that Dana is giving Jones respect, and I wouldn't say sort of protecting him, but kind of not crushing his eggs before he gives them away, or so to speak. He's keeping that back pocket of respect, so maybe there will be a fight. Or Jon Jones, I think previously in his career, I think there was comparison of who he might be avoiding. And then I think Jon Jones came online and said, well, here's your boy who just lost. And y'all saying he was the one to defeat. Oh, that was Johnny Walker, wasn't it? The next best thing to beat Jon Jones, and then he lost to Corey Anderson. And I think even Jon Jones gave his opinion on that too, as far as the comparison to beat him. So maybe this is just a strategy for Jon Jones, just to see, all right, let's see Aspinall do his first defense. And if he loses, this is the guy that you were saying is going to beat me. How disrespectful of the fans. And, so he can reverse it. I think it's very strategic.
Am I?
I mean, I don't think it'll stick. I think it's just a way for him to, get the bag, as we like to say. But I had another point I wanted to bring up.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm going to ask you guys a question. Now, the fight we wanted was Jon Jones versus Tom Aspinall. And there's a lot of people saying that Jon Jones is ducking Tom Aspinall. And the fight Jon Jones was talking about was against Alex Pereira. Mm-hmm. Now, if Alex Pereira would have beat Magomed Ankalaev for the light heavyweight belt in their fight, do you think Jon Jones would have fought Alex Pereira at heavyweight? Would Jon Jones have taken a fight then if it was Alex?
Yeah, definitely. But it's a less of a risk. He probably think that's easy money, and he would get paid more because it's a bigger fight because Aspinall doesn't have as big a name. So, yeah, I think he would have definitely fought Pereira because he saw Pereira get sent to the shadow realms by Izzy at 185. So he's like, Pereira comes up that heavyweight, that's easy work because I'll just take him down and just submit him. So yeah, and I mean, I guess it's kind of hypocrisy on my end because, like I said, I don't think he'd be afraid to face Aspinall, but asking that question and me answering it, I guess it does kind of look like a duck, but it's like I said, it's lower risk if he would have fought Pierre and a bigger name. So I think he would have taken that fight and then possibly have retired. But who knows? What do you think, Steve?
I think definitely he would take that fight with Pierre. Like you said, 2 stars, especially Alex Pierre. Definitely would have took it. We would have saw the numbers, probably bigger numbers than what he was given with Aspinall. And I am hearing those were pretty big numbers they were offering, if I'm not mistaken. So just imagine with a Pierre and Jon Jones, 2 added stars. I think that would be a definite. And like you said, based off of, I would think Aspinall would be the tougher fight, but I don't think a lot of people would turn down money either.
What do you think, Admire?
I mean, that thought just kind of came in my head. I was like, that kind of shows that it kind of is ducking, but it's kind of a business move, but it's kind of a legacy move because it is the harder fight. But why would you take the harder fight for less money? So it kind of makes sense, but I don't know, man. It's less risk. It's less risk going against Pierre, more reward. Aspinall, high risk, less reward. So I mean, it makes sense, but I don't know. I think that Tom Aspinall, though, is getting a lot of credit and fame off of just the talk of fighting Jon Jones without even fighting him. And I think that is the point that Jon Jones was trying to prove. Look, you're getting a name off of me and we ain't even fought. So why do I even need to fight you? So I don't know. We'll see. I mean, I guess there's no point in even worrying about it now because Jon Jones is retired as of now.
Yeah. So, I don't think the retirement will stick. But if they don't fork up enough money, it may stick. Because if they only try at TKO, we know how they are with the new TKO Holdings group. If they still are trying to not give him over 8 figures, he's like, I'm only coming back for 8 figures, then it just might be stuck at a standstill, and it might not happen. But I don't know, man. I think they would give it, if Conor had his head on straight, they would give him what he asked for.
Yeah, I mean, I think the UFC kind of is at a point right now where who's their longest reigning champion as of right now? Like Valentina? Is she the longest reigning champion?
She just won it back. It'd probably be Wei Lee. I'm thinking down the list. Yeah, heavyweight. Aspinall has been the interim champion for a while. Heavyweight champion.
Volk just got it back a little bit ago, but I mean,
it would have been Islam if he didn't vacate it.
I was gonna say, but they're gonna have to do something. They need a new poster boy. I mean, we always talk about that. We talked about O'Malley was, where they were putting all the money because O'Malley had a big social media following, and then O'Malley lost. Then they lost Conor. Now they lost Jon Jones. They need to find somebody to pump all this money into that holds a belt. But now they got to find somewhere to go. They got to find somebody to pump money into. And if they can't find that person, I could see them saying, okay, Jon Jones, we'll give you 8 figures. We'll give you $10 million. Come back and do this.
I agree with you in a sense, but looking back, I keep on bringing up TKO because they also own the WWE. If they are making all of this money off of the TV deal, and as we see on TV, everywhere they're going to, they're basically selling it out and people are paying astronomical numbers, even with these shitty ass cards. But if they just keep, painting by the numbers, we don't need any stars since we're still selling out all these places and, people are still coming.
Yeah, true. I mean, but I don't know, man. As us being big just fight fans in general, I never thought I'd say this, but I kind of want a star, a star to be in there. It's fun to have, a guy to, be the big it guy just to kind of follow along with, because right now it kind of feels stagnant. A lot of these times we get on here and it's like we don't have, a big star of, hey, what's this person doing? Like, when Connor was not being the bad guy, but when Connor was actually, just kind of loud and, before the, I would say before the Mayweather fight, he was fun to follow on, social media and to see what Conor McGregor was up to. Hey, did you see him? He was over here doing this. He was over here hanging out with this person. Some of that stuff was fun to keep up with, but it seems like we don't have a champion to keep up with now.
And I agree with you. And I think the pandemic was a blessing and a curse. Of course, it sucked at the time and because we didn't have events. But now that we're fully out of the pandemic, people were starved on going to live events. And I think they're still seeing the trickle of that. People are paying to go to these shitty ass events. So I think we're going to have to see just the prices keep rising and we got to get these casuals out of here and they got to see their attendance dip so we can start seeing stars. Like you said, it's fun seeing stars and the hype that are behind those pay-per-views. And I mean, what was it? 8 years or so ago, we saw the highest pay-per-view sold with Conor and Habib. And it's just fun just having that big fight feel. And right now, you're not really giving that. Of course, us three are going to always watch because we've been watching for over 10, 15 years now. So, of course, they're going to always get us. But, it's fun talking with friends who like kind of dip their toes in and be like, hey, y'all watching this big-ass so-and-so fight that's happening this weekend? And right now, we're not getting that.
Yeah, you're not getting them stacked cards like we used to where it's like just banger after banger. Like a lot of times lately, it's been like some of the fight night cards are better than the numbered cards.
Yeah, it's like no rhyme or reason how they are putting these cards together. Who's ever available, I feel like just throw them on there and and have it spread out. What do you think, Steve? Before we get off this talk,
Yeah, as far as like what was the question?
just like we're seeing Jon Jones retire and UFC's kind of in the mud a little bit as far as
Stardom, right?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, it seems like that era where you had storylines in multiple divisions. Man, I can just name a few of them, even the small ones, the Tyron Woodleys and Stephen Thompson, they had their little back and forth. Just those back to back, and even then you had your stars, you had your definite athletic stars that were known for their champion and their athleticism. Like example, of Tyron Woodley when he was a champion. If they can't necessarily grab that superstardom like Connor, and like you said, over the years, it's our stars just haven't accomplished their own goals they set. I can say Izzy, he took his first loss, right? So he just took his prestigious away when he fought Jan Blachowicz, if I'm not mistaken, in light heavyweight, and he could have stayed focused in middleweight, and and then you just started seeing the deterioration of his career. He got that one with Piera back, but we lost to Izzy. Then you have ones on the rise, but not necessarily have stars, or just they might have to go fight longer to stamp a true stardom in the UFC. But like I said, Connor's not fighting. Jon Jones retired. The people that we grew up loving for the past 10 years, Yoel Romero, the past 3-5 years, these fighters are retiring. And there needs to be a new stock, I feel like, needs to be built up, or find a talent pool where somebody's just tearing through divisions.
Even with you have that are talented like a Islam or Pantoja we've seen this weekend, but and we've seen it with it is a little bit easier if you're UFC is based out of US, so if you got somebody from the US, they could kind of connect with fans. But you gotta have a counter, but it's also an English-speaking country. But we've seen it happen with star making that people from different countries, and I don't know why UFC can't do it now. Maybe it's not UFC, it's just lightning in the bottle, and these kind of fighters are speaking for themselves because GSP, English isn't his first language, and he was a huge star. Anderson Silva was a huge star. English was first language. So it seems like it's a UFC thing at this point, right, Admire?
Right.
I don't know. I don't know what they'll do to fix it, but before we do move on, I do have a few other questions as far as the Jon Jones thing goes. So, not taking into factor the out of case stuff, because say what you want about his legal troubles, just keeping it strictly in cage. Because nothing's gonna change my mind about what I think about him. I think he's the greatest of all time. But he does have haters. So what do you think the haters will bring up more as far as his legacy goes? His drug test pops or him not facing Aspinall? And I'll let you kick it off, Admire.
I think the recency bias will be the more talked about thing. I think it'll be the ducking Aspinall thing. I think that is what the majority of people will use, but I think the more hardcore people, like the more serious people about MMA, will use the PED stuff. Like Errol Fawani, he already said something about Jon Jones' legacy and PEDs. Like he already brought that up and posted something about it. I think it was today or something. So I mean, you'll have people use them both, but I think the recency stuff with Tom Aspinall will be the default go-to for most people.
Steve?
Well, you refresh the question again?
I was saying, as far as detractors on people bring up Jon Jones' legacy, would drug tests be brought up more, or him not facing Aspinall?
Well, we're kind of, I guess, in a new territory of a undefeated MMA fighter. I guess Jon Jones was the first to, I believe, make that. So, man, we're gonna have to see years after his retirement to see if people remember, because they say that you remembered, sort of your last fight, and then, so to speak, people are gonna look at the record. And I guess we can look at a more recent Mayweather and see what sticks today. He's undefeated, and what do people say about him? And I believe there are three things that will stick to Jon Jones, but I think a lot of things, and quite honestly, depending on how good Aspinall does in his career, might not even be remembered as the person that so-called retired him.
Yeah, I think it could go either way. Like, if you don't like the guy, you don't like the guy. So you could bring up both. But like Amai said, it's probably gonna be more so recency bias, and people talk about him not fighting Aspinall. But it is what it is. But one last question, actually, before we move on. With Aspinall now being promoted the undisputed heavyweight champion, do you think, not directly but indirectly, Jon Jones is playing a little mind games? Do you think Aspinall will have that in his head? Like he kind of has some type of imposter syndrome where he didn't get to face Jon Jones, and that might mess with him a little bit? I'll let you kick it off, Steve.
It can possibly, because everybody would want that big fight with the undefeated fighter, and when you're on the top of your career, it's just like a opportunity missed on your list. Somebody that slayed the undefeated fighter in MMA. Yeah, I would be a little bit upset, and maybe, but and also just looking at anybody in heavyweight that can equivalate his money fight. Trying to think of the heavyweight division that could generate just as much money, and the closest thing is if somehow Pierre comes up from heavyweight, I think he could maybe get some type of money fight. But other than that, I can't see as any other people that would generate money for him. That's probably why he's upset.
But yeah, I might think Aspinall might come into some imposter syndrome.
Nah, I mean, I think Tom is going to take this as I scared Jon Jones out of the UFC. Tom said last year that, I'm going to retire you. And I think he even said, I'm going to retire you without even having to fight you. So I think Tom kind of predicted this, that Jon was going to retire before they even got to fight. So I think he'll just take this as, I didn't even have to fight the guy and move on with it and continue fighting these guys at the top of the food chain. I mean, I don't know who's next. I mean, I think Surreal's Gone's up there, but I mean,
what, like I'm about to say, like, what fight do you even care about at heavyweight for champion?
I don't. I mean, Johnson Almeida, maybe.
I mean, he lost. I think he got one back since then. Cyril Gone. We just saw what happened with him between Francis and Jon Jones. So he's kind of damaged goods at this point. I mean,
almost everybody up at the top's damaged goods, pretty much.
Now let's see what you could do without being the B side of a Jon Jones fight. Aspinall, he needs to go on like a tear. He needs to win the next 3 by devastating fashion to, people not to, be like, see, told you so, that, he was just huffing and puffing for no reason. So it's going to be interesting to see. Thank you for checking out this Haymaker Combat Sports segment. This full episode can be found on the Haymaker Combat Sports YouTube page and in audio form on all major podcast platforms. Until next time, peace.